So, Carol, since you were the first one in here, what do you think it is that we are doing? And just be honest, and let's figure out where we're at.
Who is we?
All of us. What is it? Where am I leading us? Where do you want to go? Are we on the same page?
Well, I mean, I think that you are developing a structure to have some soldiers go out there and spread the word to the people, and that part of this workshop is to educate and find solidarity in both message and community. That's what I think we're up to.
Okay. To a certain degree. Can you define what you feel the message is and the solidarity is?
Well, I think the solidarity is that we are all Kitsap residents, and this is our community. So I think that's the solidarity. And I think the message that you've been saying is that things are going to get to a point where we're going to need to help ourselves and not have anyone saving us or being there for us in times of need.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. I want to. I'm making a mental note because there's a part of that. There's also the upside, which apparently I'm not doing a good enough job of talking about, which is to say, by being resilient, yes, we have the ability to overcome and save ourselves. But also by being resilient, we build a capacity to do better for everybody. And that is part of the messaging that we want to get out there. Is that yes, there is a downside. There is a downside coming, and actually, I would argue the downside is here, and we're already seeing that we have failures going on all across the board. As I pointed out a couple of weeks ago, try going to Vancouver, BC right now. It's not possible because the roads are all washed out. All of the roads are washed out.
What?
You haven't heard that?
What'd you do? No, I haven't.
Like up around Bill.
No, Mark,
Yeah.
I haven't heard that.
Seriously, that's that failure of American media.
Again?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
No.
So, but the other side is by coming together now and driving things by resilient based on values that we all share, like food, water, shelter, things like that, we actually make a better life and a better community for everybody. And that's really what the main focus is. But it also happens to save us from ourselves and from our structure going into the future.
Yeah, to me, that's the bonus.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, the thing I'm most excited about is that this could really make us a strong community and connection, because as a nation, we are so huge. It's hard to feel community with your nation, even as a state. I mean, we have that big range of mountains that cuts us off from the east side of the state, and their lifestyle is really different from ours to a large extent. And I think that the size of our county is doable. I mean, I feel like I could feel really connected to, like, these are my people. This is my community here. Given the structures that would enhance that. And I like that most of this plan is going to be applicable to everyday life, regardless if we have hell or high water.
Yep. Or empty shelves at the supermarket, which I'm seeing more and more of. So, Tony?
Sir?
Where do you think we're heading?
I think we're in a situation of headed towards a preparedness for how I per se catastrophe awareness, where we can unify and function. What should I say, in the midst of the storm? So if there's a situation, we're familiar with it. Well, what I was really hoping just watch get off the ground and get an idea is where if there was a way to manufacture an acre of land and we put a house and made everything self-sufficient, so we can start learning
How to do that?
how to function without codependent off the county government.
Well, there's always going to be some function of that, and we can talk about that a little later on because, I'd like to step into what the long-term goals are, but we'll get there when we get there. It'll be toward the end of this.
That's my sort of like.
Yeah.
That's what it does look like.
But yeah, that was my whole thing was
Right tower.
resilient communities functioning in a situation of
Yeah, and also, let's talk about the fun part for a minute.
fun.
Yeah, the fun part. If you're connected to all of your neighborhood and you have block parties, isn't that fun?
I don't know.
Potlucks?
I haven't done that in so long. I'm getting old.
Well, it's time to start bringing it back, don't you think?
Get to know your neighbors, yeah.
It would be nice. It would be.
Knowing your neighbors, knowing somebody's got your back, I would think that would be a very comforting and
There's
warm
nothing
feeling.
like it.
And that you've got somebody else's back.
Yeah.
And that's the to me, that's the beauty, that's the strength of the whole thing is what we're telling. If we're taking soldiers and we're going out and marching to talk to people, say, so let's talk about, having the comfort of having your back, knowing somebody's got your back. That's really the message, knowing somebody's got your back and knowing that together we can put together this puzzle that will provide us with capacity to have food, water, infrastructure, security, homes, all of these things. But it starts with us. It has never started from the top down. Not anywhere in history has it ever started from top down. Nowhere in history. And one of my favorite quotes is by George Sutton.
Why is
Yeah.
that?
Well, because the idea is to flow up to the top, not to flow down to us.
There's no such thing as trickle down.
Yeah, except the trickle was yellow and smelled really bad.
That's
Talk
simple.
about Reaganomics.
So, was that too political, Marwan?
Not at all.
Okay, so before I get to Terry, who actually, we lived in the same home, so she's kind of a ringer. Marwan, what do you think the marching orders are?
The marching orders for what?
If you're going to go out and take the message that we're teaching in these workshops out, what is it? What do you think it is?
Ooh, there are a lot of messages. One, I like to think that I'm trying to spread the message, and one of the things that I'm trying to spread is knowledge. A place to give space for people to give their thoughts and opinions, right? Because I think all too often we are only able to hear from a certain set of folks. And so giving voice to those that are voiceless, I think, is powerful. And through that, hopefully building community and relationship, which is a pretty macro thing.
And we want to do that by showing people that there is a personal value to them that supersedes politics, religion, and economic status. So, Terry, I want you to go, and then I've got a brief.
Well, I think we're trying to grow a grassroots network that, like you said, everybody has each other's backs and we take care of each other and everybody's needs.
And make friends in the process.
Exactly. Lots of friends.
One of those basic needs.
Well, you don't go very far without food and water, do you?
You don't do much without water.
Yeah. And did you know that you can live 7 to 10 days without food, but you can only live 3 days without water?
And you charge them without here.
So having water in Kitsap County, there are something like 87 water districts,
Moisture.
and each of the water districts owns a piece of the delivery system. But nobody seems to manage the overall picture of water in Kitsap County, though the tribes have been trying to initiate that for, at least the Suquamish tribe, for a while. They hit a lot of walls with other districts because each of those districts are special. I can't remember what John Oliver called them, but they're special utility districts, and they can set their own. They can basically tax you without a public vote. They can raise funds through bonds and raise fees. They're basically unmanaged governments or unrepresentative governments. and each of them have the water. So this same thing was going on in, I believe it was Minnesota, and the Minnesota government, state government, actually finally stepped back and took over all of the water districts in the state of Minnesota.
Mark, after how many years did it take for Minnesota government to establish that after?
I
know they-
wish I could tell you the answer to that, but
It's a
I
process.
basically I learned this in a USDA presentation meeting, a federal meeting that I was sitting in on,
Okay.
and they were talking about the people who initiated the rollout of the process were talking about it. So I only got a synopsis of it. I didn't dive in deep, but what they did is they ended up closing something like 12 to 18 plants, refurbishing another 27, 30 plants throughout the state, and opening 2 or 3 new ones in places where they really needed to be. But for the first time ever, they had a complete picture of what the water tables look like in Minnesota.
How do you figure that out?
Well, you would have geologists go in, hydrologists is what I think they're called, go in and check the water tables and, drill down and do samplings and figure out what the aquifers are actually doing. There's technology to do that. And this is apropos today talking about water, because I just posted, I don't know if you guys go to our page and not ever look at things, but I just posted a new study came out. Actually, I posted a video by Bo of the Fifth Column, who I like because he really kind of lays things out. I was a little disappointed in this one, not because he was not absolutely forthcoming with knowledge, but he didn't post the link. I know why he didn't do it now, because I went out and found the link to the study, and they charge for it. They give you the synopsis, but to get the actual report and read the entire report is like $10. So he didn't do it because otherwise people would be accusing him of shilling for somebody else. And I get that. Because of what he does, that would be a real big risk for him. And be off message. But the message basically said that by 2040 to 2041, California will be almost without snow. Now, how familiar are people here with the California water situation?
Aren't they getting it off of the Columbia River?
Some of it, yeah, but they still rely on the snowpack for about 50% of Northern California's water. And the snowpack disappears. There's this absolutely beautiful structure somewhere between San Francisco and San Jose off the 280 called the Water Temple. And it is this beautiful Greek structure in this park. And you can walk up to it and you can watch all of this water converge from different sources into this one place and go into the 280 reservoir. That is where the snowmelt runs off from the Hetch Hetchy and goes down to service the entire Bay Area. That'll dry up. This beautiful structure will have no water going through it by 2040. It's 19 years. So let's talk about the aquifers in California, which no one team seems to be talking about, but the Central California has dropped 5 meters in the last 30 years due to the fact that they're sucking the aquifers dry for farming and agriculture and have been for about 70, 80 years. Aquifers, as I mentioned before, take between 700 and 10,000 years to recharge. Now, here's the punchline. Water is really important, but food is almost equally important, and California provides 30% of the nation's food.
Agriculture.
So water failing in California, that's a bad thing.
I don't know how to believe that when they're sitting right next to an ocean. That's always been.
Okay, so so they've been working on a desal plant in San Diego for over a decade, and it's still not online. I don't know why, but desal seems like okay. Here's the downside of desal. The obvious downside of desal. When you're desalinating water, you end up with a high potency brine at the end of it, which is all the salt.
Mark,
But not everybody does.
I understand. I don't care about the desalt part. It amazes me how miraculous these men's minds are that are in this field that can't do some type of fusion to make that water.
There's plenty of technologies. They just want to go to the big one that somebody's selling them.
When next to some of these oceans, these mountains, the moisture in the atmosphere of the water from the ocean is making these vegetation grow. And I'm like, maybe we're eating the wrong stuff.
Well, we can talk about that offline another point, but
Yeah.
the truth of the matter is we aren't going to innovate when we're selling technology that makes people rich. They don't have to pay for R&D.
And I always think about that. If there's no money in it for anybody, they don't want to do it.
Or if it costs them money to do it, and then it's going to jeopardize the product they already have.
I mean,
And jeopardize the product they already
Huh?
the profit that they already have.
I said this a couple of weeks ago, and I'll say it again. Where's my flying car? I was in the 1980s. I was promised a flying car by 2021. I should be flying around in a Jetsons mobile. By the way, there is one out there called the Jetsons One at the moment. It's a 4-prop little thing that flies like 80 miles on a charge. But the trouble is that they're still selling this 100-year-old technology that runs on fuel, that have different paint jobs and different fenders. And that's the technology they're selling because that's what they're making the money out of, and they don't have to retool for much. Maximizing profit.
maximizing profit.
I actually just wrote an article about that. And by the way, if you guys don't know it, I write on Medium, and I'm back to writing articles. And I wrote one called "What Do You Do with a Toxic Culture?" which I think you guys will be amused by. Actually, having heard me talk, you can almost hear the cadence as I'm doing this. And when I did the title and then the post title, the title is "What Do You Do with a Toxic Culture?" And I said, to be sung to the tune of "What Do You Do with a Drunken Sailor?" And it's kind of tongue in cheek like that, but it brings us through the subject matter that we've been discussing for several weeks. Yes, Tony.
No.
Yeah, and actually, it just got posted internationally today. IWRI just picked it up and put it out. They're a academic group internationally working on culture change. So someone there thought it was funny.
Who is it you write the article for?
I write them for us,
Oh.
for our Facebook group, for the
I thought, what publication? Medium?
Hmm?
Medium?
Medium is a blogging format.
Oh,
And actually, a lot of newspapers pick up articles from there, op-ed pieces and such that people write. There are probably 5 or 6 million people who write on Medium, but it's a good format to do it, and you can share from there. And it allows me to keep the things that I write in one place. Actually allows me to go back and make them better periodically. So I have 2 new ones. One's that talks about the focus on quarterly profit, selling our souls for quarterly profit.
Did he say selling our souls for quarterly profit?
He did.
Yeah, we're not selling our souls; they're selling our souls for quarterly profit. But actually, it's not. I'm not sure that's the title. But I've also got one right now going that should be out this week about expectations of Christmas in the holiday season, how to stay sane. So read them. You'll understand them.
No, I agree with them. I understand through the years of just trying to do the next right thing for the right reason throughout the years. I understand.
There's
topics.
there's always a right thing. The trouble is that people have trouble seeing it because of all the noise.
It's the action. You just have to do the next right thing.
Always is. And that's actually part of what we're discussing here. When people challenge you, just say, let's find some place where we have common ground. Let's talk about food and water. Do you like food? Do you like water? One of the things I wrote in the Food for All piece that everyone's very interested in, I said, how would you feel if prices went up 20% at the supermarket? Oh, wait, that was last week.
It was.
What would happen if 20% the shelves were empty? Oh, that was a month or so ago. What happens if 50% of the prices go up 50%? What happens if the shelves are 50% empty? Actually, I was at Costco. When did I go to Costco? This weekend? Sunday, maybe? Sunday or Monday. Anyway, I went to Costco, and the guy in front of me was buying 2 enormous packs of toilet paper, and he was told he could only buy 1 because it was a Cyber Monday sale on toilet paper. I'm just gonna leave that alone. And I'm looking at that, and I thought about the meme that I saw once on Facebook that made me laugh so hard because of when COVID first happened and all of the shelves were out of toilet paper and you couldn't buy toilet paper for love or money. And here's where you need your neighbors, because one of them has got a garage full of toilet paper.
I like it.
And you start sharing that out. But I was thinking about the meme that came out and says, and I used the last piece of toilet paper from the rolls that I bought in 2020 in the COVID scare of 2020, and it's 2051.
A lot of toilet paper.
Good insulation.
Yeah, actually, when that happened, I actually was able to get a bag of toilet paper at Walmart that lasted me a year because it's the smallest one I could buy. So, but our message is common ground, building community, finding a place where we can all agree, but empowering people. Starting with you, to bring your pieces of the puzzle, because until you ask the question or make the observation or point something out, there's a world of things we won't know. And each of you bring pieces to the puzzle. And that's what you have to own, because you can't have the conversation with somebody else about that until you own it. Until you own your own piece of the puzzle and the fact that you have a piece of the puzzle. Everybody does. Your life. Okay, so we talked about, you weren't here for this, but we talked about not taking things personally, because it's not about you. It's about how somebody else sees you and how you see somebody else. But the strength of that is that you have a whole world of experiences in your life that inform you, and you're going to look at something far differently than anybody else. And that moment that you say that, it'll go, oh, there's a piece of the puzzle that we didn't think about. And everybody has a piece of the puzzle. Everyone does. I'm laying all of my pieces of the puzzle on the table. That's how we got the edge. Terry brought her piece of the puzzle. We've got the edge figured out. But we aren't going to know what the picture is until all the rest of you bring your pieces of the puzzle. Marwan's bringing his right now. He's unwrapping it for Christmas.
Oh yeah, Christmas is early.
It's early.
So that's what we have to own. So one of the reasons we're having this discussion tonight is that I need to know that you folks, I need to know what you folks see, what you hear, and what we need to come together on yet, because I don't know. You feeling empowered and wanting to go out and talk to people?
My concern with that is that people will have questions, and
Mhm.
I'm not gonna. I feel like I need some solid information, like things that you talked about, but I don't have. Just because I listened to it one time doesn't mean I own all that information. And if I feel like I need a reference book or something so that I can, when they say, well,
Well, there's two parts of that.
that I have something to refer to if I don't know in my
I
head.
like that.
Okay, so there's two parts to that. One is I've been doing this 20 years, and I don't know the answers to all the questions yet that people will ask. And the way I deal with that is I keep it simple. When somebody asks me a question, let's say about food, what does food security look like? I will say, we have a plan to do this, but I don't have the details with me. What's important about food to you? Why is food security important to you? Let's talk about that. Bring it back to them. Always bring it back to them, because it's really about what they say that's going to connect them to having a longer discussion. And you will learn from them. And that's the part that is so hard for us, because everything in our culture tells us that we need to have all the answers. And the truth is that we aren't going to get there unless other people bring their answers to the table. So our job isn't so much to tell them the answers, but to draw what their needs out of them. Does that make sense? So it's more about questioning and getting them into the conversation, because their piece of the puzzle is going to inform what the bigger picture looks like. And we need to empower them, get them interested in having the conversation, and then empower them to bring their piece of the puzzle to the table.
Okay.
Okay?
There's question stuff. Excuse me.
It's okay. So when you talk about community resilience and capacity and or building community, strong community, which is kind of how we're framing this, I ask people, what does community mean to you? So let's start there. Carol, what does community mean to you?
Well, it's multidimensional, I think. I mean, my first thought is more, kinship, like my chosen community, my heart community is like my inner core community. And then from there, I guess you could go out to my neighborhood, and then, the Kitsap, I guess, or Port Orchard, and then Kitsap. So it's this sort of expanding sense of community.
So how do you picture yourself interacting with, let's say, your neighborhood community? What does that look like to you?
Well, I don't,
Okay.
That's not where I go. I mean, I think like mostly what I've been working on for the last 5 years is more political. I mean, that's been my thrust, is just trying to affect change through the political process. And I know your feelings on that, and I agree with them, other than that has
It seems to be the only tool we have.
Yeah, and it can be immediate. And so anyway, that's a community that I have been a part of to affect change. And then I have my inner sanctum community, and that's working on a more energetic field of creating change through the field, if you will.
Mhm. Respect, Tony. When the people are talking. I know you're awed by the bronze machine over there.
Rose gold.
Oh, rose gold.
Rose,
Oh,
yeah, it does.
of course you'd get matching machines.
My toothbrush is that color.
Okay, so yeah, and I understand that work too.
Yeah.
Terry and I have this discussion constantly. I do some of that work as well, but when talking to people, in messaging to people, I stay completely away from it, because you will turn off 80% of the people right off the bat by having that conversation. And some of the people you get are people you really don't want, because I've been doing it for a very long time. But so when you hear me speak, I filter a bunch of stuff out. It's also like no one here can really knows my political affiliation, even though I talk about politics a fair amount in the workshops. I also don't want to share, because it distracts from the work, because you'll be focused on who I am and what I do, as opposed to what we need to talk about. And that in and of itself is a lesson for communicating to other people.
Well, we're making assumptions about you because you seem to be this type of political leaning, and therefore I can't listen to anything you have to say because I am of this sort of political leaning.
So I will tell you a true story, a very short story. When I was starting this 4 years ago, we had meetings in Bremerton, and one of the meetings I was talking about something, and the gun discussion came up. And I don't have
Guns.
I don't have a negative connotation for guns, but I think that we need gun control in this country. I think it needs to be common sense, and I think that we need to get a lot of the right wing talking points, one voting issue, to shut up and listen to common sense. But I told the lady I own a gun. I've owned guns all my life, and she got up and left the room, saying I cannot sit down and have a conversation with somebody who owns a gun. I said, well, you eliminated about 2/3 of the people in the United States then, including a lot of Democrats and liberals, I will point out. Another brief story. One of the largest proponents against gun ownership in California was, at that time, Mayor of San Francisco, Dianne Feinstein. She was arrested for carrying concealed without a permit. So one of my issues with politics tends to be toward hypocrisy.
Remember how she got in office?
Don't anymore, but
Carry a gun.
yeah.
San
I think it
Francisco.
makes a difference.
But anyway, there are a lot of good things about some people, but I like a lot of the people that represent us. I strongly dislike several people, and they are of both political parties. It has a lot to do with integrity. So it's hard to say one way or the other. I just watched. Has anyone here seen The Newsroom? The TV series The Newsroom? It was one of Aaron Sorkin's who did West Wing. And it's actually brilliant. It's on HBO if you get a chance. And the question in the very first scene of the series, which is brilliant if you can watch it on YouTube, I suggest you do. It's one of the best diatribes on America I've ever heard. But they asked a news anchor, people who watch you don't know if you're Republican or Democrat or independent. Do you do that for a purpose? Is it to keep people from putting you in a box? I said, I'll take that answer, because he does that. But it's kind of interesting that it's true. The minute you are labeled as one thing or another, you lose half the people. And what you say doesn't matter. There's a lesson here that we're teaching, because if you go to have a conversation with somebody, you should be able to have a conversation with anybody of any background and get to the heart of the matter of talking about values that you can agree on. And that isn't going to be politics or religion, ever.
Well, even if it's somebody that I don't necessarily agree with their political ideals, if they're honest, if they're making a promise and trying to make that happen, if they're if they're doing,
If their intent is good,
yeah, if they're trying to make some changes, and this is their way of seeing that this is the way to deal with it, I'm okay with that. It's and this is true across the board. Most of them say what they need to say to get elected, and then do what they want to do and ignore everybody that elected them after they're elected.
what is best for them.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole goal isn't to serve your community, county, state, whatever. The goal is to perpetuate your political career.
Do you guys remember what I said last time? I know it's been 2 weeks when I talked about a governmental democracy, a constitutional democracy without a political element.
I don't remember that.
Okay, so I asked this question frequently in classes and said, what does a democratic government, a constitutional democracy, look like without a political element?
Political.
Like politics, without politics.
Element, the last word you said in that sentence.
Political element. What does it look like without a political element? So it looks a lot like the Constitution of the United States and the way that the forefathers who wrote the Constitution imagined the country would run. Remember, we didn't have professional politicians when the Constitution was written. The idea was that you would have peers representing you and then leaving to go back to work in the fields. It was not a full-time job. It was a job that you volunteered to do to make the country a better place.
And they know they needed somebody to represent them, so they picked one man to do the representation.
Right. And then we decided somewhere along the line to get professional politicians. And now we've got guys that are in office for 40 years. They have lifetime health care. They have a lifetime retirement. They have, they don't pay taxes. I mean, and they don't represent, most importantly, they no longer represent us. Is there any fault with my logic here?
Oh, it
No,
makes
but as-
perfectly good.
Go ahead.
Well, I just said it makes sense what he was talking about because I've seen the process happen.
I just don't think you let it fall to the wayside, because it's important you know who's on your school board, and you make sure it's someone that you feel represents how you want your children educated. I think it's important you have a county commissioner that you feel is doing the best for South Kitsap. I think it's important. I mean, all the way up the line, we saw what happened the last 5 years when it was in some other hands. I'm not getting political here. I'm just saying
No.
there is an importance.
And Carol, I agree with
the
you.
way that we, even though it's imperfect and and all you're saying is true, it's what we have, and it's what is directing us in a way that is either going to take us on a pretty downward spiral path or perhaps not. But
So I entirely agree with you. I vote in every election. That's the thing, though. We allowed it to get here, but we can change it, because isn't this a country by the people, for the people? So if enough people come together and do a constitutional amendment to bring it back to a more balanced system, can't we change things?
That would work. But the people are separated right now. We're kind of apart.
So how could we possibly fix people being separated and divisive? Perhaps having conversations with them and finding common ground?
yeah. Pardon me? I'm sorry, we were just
So-
mumbling that they are changing things.
So how could we possibly change things to make it better and possibly go back or forward to a new system that works better for humans? Could it be possibly that we have a grassroots movement that gets people to talk to each other and gets to know their neighbors and agree on common values that are important to us all? Is that a possible way for people to come together and make a change?
Sure.
So perhaps doing something like the Kitsap Resiliency Project has a longer term positive effect than grow centers,
Then what?
than building grow centers and solving water issues. Maybe we can change the face of politics in Kitsap County to be more humanistic and human centric. And maybe when that happens, if somebody else is like watching us do this from other places, maybe they can start building projects of their own there. And then maybe in the next 20, 30 years, we can affect a national change in the way we do politics to be more humanistic and more focused on what humans need and less focused on what the politicians need. But it's going to take time. It doesn't happen in 4 years.
That's interesting. Because when COVID hit, actors and entertainers didn't mean anything to us. We all had to survive. We get hit with another pandemic, politicians aren't really going to mean much to us.
Matter of fact, there was a newscaster or a YouTube, local YouTube caster, Brandy something, who said that COVID would have been a lot better responded to if the politicians had stayed out of it. Because they made things divisive when it didn't need to be. So I'm going to give a few minutes for everyone to think about that. What could happen if we built a network of people committed to making it more human and taking care of the basic needs of all of us, which we're all, at least the majority of us, are terrified about. all of us are terrified about. Even rich people. Do you know why rich people continually get richer and richer and richer? Because they're insecure and they're afraid they will never have enough. So all of us are terrified. Every single one of us are terrified. And we're alone. What happens
What was
if
that
a bunch of
question?
us get together and start working together?
We undermine the people who are trying to manipulate things behind the scenes.
Not even undermined, as we build a new foundation and they become irrelevant.
Well, but that's what we're
Yeah.
undermining what their agenda is for our agendas.
Well, yeah, and
Can I be heard,
but
Marla?
that actually looks at things in the competitive way that culture pushes us to look at things. And I tend to think of things more of, well, they can do what they continue to do. We just don't have to buy into it anymore. We can do what we need to do, take care of us. And when their structure eventually crumbles, because they've built it to be top heavy, we will be okay.
I don't mind it crumbling. If it does, it's just the objective of where the people will have their goals oriented.
Well-
as we as a people, where we're moving in a direction.
So let me ask everybody, yeah.
Mark, that's the question. We will come together as a people moving towards an objective of what?
I don't know,
We're going to have to elevate to another generation.
Yep.
Of what?
Well, that's it.
No, that's not it. That's a real question.
No, I understand that.
It ain't it.
Heard on this?
But
Like,
I've
I'm
answered that
curious.
question.
What are we gonna move to? If we can have this thought in the atmosphere and think on it constructively, but we have to be goal oriented. And like in the military, we're doing this for the greater good of what I don't know, but we're gonna accomplish the mission.
Okay, so why don't we start with finding out, getting people on the same page about making sure that there's food and water and infrastructure, and along the line, find out what's important to them.
We got the food, the water, the infrastructure,
Power.
and
Power.
energy, which is plenty out there.
Communication.
That's a given. That's how we unified.
That's not a given. You have to, the way that we do
Mark,
internet is
we're
ridiculous.
with that.
Yeah.
The whole thing was the objective towards the next generation without it being a debate or an argument, constructively in thought. I'm curious, like
So
you
as
would
we
have.
as we build this together, we're going to be doing it together, right? And everyone's going to be bringing their pieces to the puzzle,
Resilient
to the table.
communities thrive through what? Trust, honor, and respect in the community.
And relationship first.
Well, that's the same thing. You're not going to have a relationship without trust, honor, and respect.
Right.
Constructively.
But we have to learn how to do it again.
We don't trust one another
Exactly.
as a people.
And how do you do
Everybody's got
that?
their fabricated thought of what they think of the other person instead
Mm-hmm.
of the actions of their functioning capabilities. So our trust, honor, and respect is distorted. We want to unify. People want to unify.
Around humanity.
They're not teaching humanity.
No, but we are.
That's a facade.
But we
know
are.
it exists.
But we are.
We are.
That's what we're learning.
I've worked in the medical field. It's a given. And humanity's already a given. Compassionate humanity is a given. You can't work in the medical field if you don't have compassion.
I know. I've met a few doctors who didn't.
In the civilized life, I don't know how you met them and talk so quickly about them. Let's say you met them. You know of them. I don't think you met them. But I can almost tell you, most people that work in that field know how to take care of people. And we have bedside manner of care and concern for people.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you with most of the nurses and ER people I've met, but not everybody. But go ahead.
I'm done.
Oh. Yeah,
Okay.
there are some doctors out there who are not great with bedside manner or compassion. Unfortunately.
No, it's a fact. It's a fact.
Asperger's.
You can always tell it's a fact, but we don't really look for that. What we look for are their talents. And the nurses usually pick up on that and fix the rest of the stuff. Pick up on what the doctor, he identifies and gets to do the senior stuff at the top, but it's like we take care of the patients.
Yes, you do.
You know,
Is that what you do?
I used to, I did in Army.
In the Army. Uh-huh.
In really horrific settings.
It is what it is. It's nothing to brag about. Nothing. It's amazing. You know,
I thought you were in school now, are you?
No,
No, what are you doing?
I'm working.
Oh, but you're not working in the medical field now?
I don't want to work in the medical field.
Are you?
I'm too old.
You want
I'm
to? You don't
retired.
want to be compassionate.
I'm 60 years old. What do you know?
Yeah, he's a kid.
You know, when I was your age, I walked to school 5 miles in the snow uphill in 90-degree temperature. We didn't have clothes, and it was tough trying to get the bark to string up them fig leaves.
Need to find long grass.
Of this time.
Good question. Good question.
Oh,
We had
God.
cameras then.
Yeah, and it was snow up both ways. But it wasn't in California because pretty soon they're not going to have any snow.
You gotta go to the, what is that? Mount San Jacinto. We got some
San Jacinto.
San Jacinto?
Yeah.
Oh, right outside there. There's some snow up a little
Okay.
bit.
I'm going to sidetrack just a little bit.
Go ahead.
Did you guys know you could ski at the top of a mesa in near Palm Springs?
Mhm.
In Palm Desert? There's actually a mesa that you can take a lift up to and ski on top of the mesa
Yep.
in the desert because it snows there.
Snow.
You actually went
That's
there
one of
once.
the tours of Palm Springs.
Yeah, to go up the lift in the winter and go skiing on the mesa.
Huh.
I actually never skied there, but I have been up there when there was snow. The idea of skiing off the edge.
The high desert?
Joshua Tree is pretty cool.
Yeah, high desert gets really freaking cold. That's where I grew up.
Where? Palm Springs, Cathedral City?
San Bernardino, Redlands area.
You're in East,
Okay, Redlands. Okay.
way in Eastern Oregon, and you come going north to go.
Did you go to Redlands High
Washington.
School?
No, went to moved out before then.
I went to college in the
It's
desert.
kind of weird. You can
Okay,
sense
so I
it.
went to Arrowhead in San Bernardino, and then we
Okay.
moved to Newport, and I went to Lincoln Junior High, and then Corona Del Mar High School.
Yeah, it's weird.
Anyway, we're off topic, and we're clicking time here. So,
Uh-oh.
do you feel you can have a conversation with somebody and talk about values to them?
Yeah.
About human values. So I was thinking about this the other day, and I'm almost horribly reticent to talk about it, but it's something that we should discuss because it's something I won't experience most likely being male, being white male. People treat women horribly in conversations, and if you have a conversation with somebody who's male and they take an attitude and feel challenged by what you're saying, how would you deal with it without being triggered? And I'm asking this because I know I've watched it happen too many times. I can't even tell you how many women I've known in my life who have been through sexual abuse, and they get triggered by things. And it's a horrible, horrible thing to know that that's happening so frequently. But it is a reality of our life, and people deal with that all the time. And people get triggered by it all the time. So if you're having a conversation with somebody and they're being abusive, what did, and this is one of the few times that I will say there's an absolutely right answer to this. How do you deal with it?
I mean, they're personally being abusive to me.
They're feeling challenged by the conversation because it's beyond what they can focus on, and they get more and more antagonistic and abusive, and because of that they tend to get personally abusive in our society, which is part of the toxic culture thing I discuss.
Oh, women carry guns.
I think I would say something like, I'm feeling really uncomfortable that your stance here feels sort of inappropriate for a meeting setting, and dial it down, buddy.
Okay. Terry?
Oh,
We're recusing ourselves from this.
I try to bring back around, I wouldn't so much as ignore what they're saying, but try to minimize what they're saying and, basically, let's say they're talking about, like you said, being misogynistic. Okay. I would say, I understand where you're coming from, but this is what I want to talk about.
Okay. Carol?
Oh, I don't know. I probably wouldn't be very nice. I probably would just say, do you hear yourself? Like, is that how you want me to hear what you're trying to say to me? 'Cause it's not making me feel very good. And so if we can't continue on some level of maturity,
Or
Then-
respect for one
yeah,
another.
then I'm out of here. I wouldn't put up with too much of that.
Okay, might I suggest a different tack in that situation? Because there are a couple, three factors playing here. One is that you would be representing the Kitsap Resiliency Project, so being confrontational is probably not going to be the best way to go. But I would hope that you would disengage quickly from the conversation and walk away, and not try and convince them, because we only need 20% and they're already showing that they aren't going to be that 20%. So getting in a position where they're getting abusive because they feel challenged by the conversation, disengage from the conversation politely and move on, leaving them with a feeling that that as positive a feeling about it as you can possibly can.
Okay.
And I say this because it's a reality. In our culture, it is an absolute reality that is likely to happen. So if you can't have the conversation, don't try.
I don't like the part where you say make them feeling as good as they can. I mean, it's like act like an asshole and then expect
Yeah.
that.
Well, I'm hoping you'll catch it before they get to the asshole part, when it starts getting pushy, and say, hey, I've got a meeting, I've got to go. I have some place I have to be. Thank you very much for your time. I'll talk to you later, and move off as fast as you can. The reason I'm saying that is because we don't need everybody. We're not trying to convince people. We're inviting people to have the conversation about common values. If they can't get there, don't waste your time. Don't get to a place where you're triggered.
Feels so good though.
And also, you're representing the project,
Oh, I'm saying.
which means all of
for
us.
myself.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, Terry will tell you that there are times that I will just grab somebody by the scruff of their throat and slam them into the table. But it really doesn't benefit the project if I do that.
You just say, speaking to as myself.
Yeah. But it's also, we don't need everybody. We need to find the people we're having rich conversations with, which actually alleviates the tension of having the conversation. If they start triggering or getting to a place where they're antagonistic or abusive or redirecting it, leave. You don't have to have the conversation. I'm not trying to make them a Mormon, Move off. Sorry, Tony.
I was just wondering if you were Mormon.
No, I am not. Though I know a lot of really good ones. But it's not about proselytizing. We're not trying to sell everybody the idea. We're not trying to tell them that they're one of the 100,000 or whatever the number is that they're going to heaven. We're trying to get people to have a conversation about what does it look like to be human in a community.
Mormon heaven is limited to 100,000 people.
One of them is. I don't remember which one of the various religions has a.
Full by now.
Yeah, there's supposed to be some limit of how many souls get into heaven, and at the time of the rapture, and I think it's somewhere around 100,000, but I'm not. Marwan,
Yeah, but what year
is it? What's the number that's supposedly stated about people that get into heaven?
For Jehovah's Witness, I think it's 144,000.
That was the number. Okay, I couldn't remember which religion had a number.
Times 12?
So how many Jehovah's Witnesses are there?
Millions.
Oh, how do you make the short
There's
list?
a lot of men up there.
Well, there'll be paradise on earth those days.
Okay.
Sorry.
So anyway, the point is that we're not trying to convert anybody. We're trying to have a conversation with people and invite them to bring their best selves to the table. God, that sounded philosophical. But so we don't have to have that conversation with everybody. But the thing is to invite the people to bring their best selves and to bring their piece, empower them to bring their pieces to the table. So how would you go about that? Let's start off with Nancy. How would you have a conversation with somebody about getting their needs met and being human?
Who's our last person?
Being human. As opposed to being humus.
I don't know. What's the circumstance under which I'm meeting with?
Okay, so you're going across the street to a neighbor you don't know that well, and you're going to sit down and talk about mapping a neighborhood or networking the neighborhood, and you want to start the conversation with them. How would you go about doing that?
Introduce myself and tell them that that I live in their neighborhood and kind of point out where I live and that I'm just going around to kind of meet everybody and find out what their concerns are with our neighborhood or with our community and what things are troubling to them and what things what things would they like to see changed, what things they think are running well, and just give them some places where they can start to latch on.
Maybe introduce the topic of resilience.
Yeah, but I'm gonna let them
Okay.
go a little bit and say, well,
Okay.
Mark, that kind of give them the idea of what this group is about and
Okay.
what we want to do, and does that interest you? Does that sound like something you think would be a good thing for us in our county?
So what would be the next step if you get okay, let's say your neighborhood, you live on a fairly small group of homes, don't you?
Yes, there's six homes.
Okay, so let's say 3 of them say that sounds like an interesting thing. Let's talk about it. What would your next step be?
To invite them over for coffee hour or something, and have maybe a topic of one of the things, like maybe talk about the food trail, because that seems like it's so unassailable. I mean, it just seems like it's it's something. How can you argue with that? It just seems like it's so great. Anyway, I think I would start with that. This is the thing, and this is the idea, and this is how it would work. And there's already a grant for getting 2 up to prototypes to see how it goes. And goal would be for jobs for the community and for parts of 10% of the produce coming out of there is going to helplines and places that are feeding people, etc. And what do you think about that? And how do you see that fitting into our community? And I don't know. I'm ad-libbing. I don't.
That's and that's it. But you bring up an interesting point. You should start talking about something that's passionate to you. The thing that hooks you. Actually, I was talking to Paul, one of the radio hosts upstairs at Radio, and I was on his show a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to be on again soon. And he said he talked to a woman out in Lake Bay about us because she was talking about how often her power fails, and the fact that she's on a well, and when the power fails, they don't have water. So we're back to water again. And this is not unknown to me because I lived out in off of Sedgwick, and same thing happened.
Most of the county is on their own on wells, or at least half the county.
Yeah. And so he said, well, this guy Mark talked about this solar pump driver or a solar pump for the wells. And she goes, really? He says, yeah. And they aren't all that expensive, and you can set them up so that in times of power outages, you've got a small battery and it'll keep the pump running and keep water coming up. And he gave her all of our information.
Oh, and it's quiet too.
Does it function?
Yeah, they do.
It functions?
Oh, yeah.
That's all that matters. That sounds like a plus.
I mean, you can get the solar batteries that they have out now that you can buy you can buy in retail that have 4 solar panels that will do a lot of things.
You had me sold on the activity
Huh.
of this program. We say communities thrive. When
Solar
the
things.
community get together. I could say we build a church somewhat. It don't have to be called a church, but something for the community that operates self-sufficiently, and then we slowly migrate it into our homes.
Mhm.
And when we sell it to them, we sell it to them as a marketing thing of interest without, where we do it together. And we gotta, some are gonna think we're a cult, and it's like we're just trying to survive. Well,
I get called that
the
frequently.
professional victims out there, oh, it's an occult because it's off the grid of what the government's making us do, what we have to do. And it's like we're trying to function when we don't have nothing, and the government's not supporting the people because they want to keep it for themselves. So we still got to live, and that's what I keep hearing.
But we want to set it up now when we're not in an emergency crisis situation.
Come on, Ted, preach, Ted. That's what I'm talking about, and that's
Yeah.
where I what you're saying. I'm going, yeah.
Some
We're
people-
planning,
some people
we're
don't
planning,
get it
so
till it's too late.
we're not trying to fail at this. We're just
Yeah, and the bottom line is, it's the most human thing you can do. People ask me, well, is this something new? I said, no, it's something old. We have to go back to being human. We have to go back to our humanity.
because it's like we're codepending off the government, and they're taxing us from one side to the other,
And even worse, we're codependent off corporations.
and the corporations. And it's like, I forgot who I spoke to, a family member that's not doing well. He's got to sell both of his homes to go into healthcare, assisted living, to pay for his assisted living. I was just talking to a family member about that. I go, wow.
I had this conversation earlier today, and I think Terry and I were talking about it, but I am estranged from my sister and her family. Long history, and it is what it is. But we have had several arguments where her husband has told me that he's doing it this way, and he's going to have some money, and he leverages all of his credit, does all of this stuff, invests in all these stocks, and I'm going to be so well off when I retire, it's going to be great. And then Enron happened. My sister at 50 some odd years old went back to work.
Yeah.
Because they lost everything at Enron.
Oh,
And I was telling him all the way along that it's legalized gambling. Don't put all your eggs in that basket. And he kept telling me that I'm an idiot.
I was working on a golf course when that happened, and I watched a lot of the people in the community in Palm Desert go back to work.
Mhm.
And it was interesting, and they were morning to do their driving, and they were upset because they knew they had to go back to work. They lost a lot.
They lost a bunch of.
I didn't
And
know
my-
much about it then, but I understand it now as I watch the years progress down the road.
And we're in the same ball of wax. We're in the same. Nothing has changed. We're in that same thing. People are still selling 401ks. It's still legalized gambling. It's still a risk of the money that you're doing. And my mom, who worked worked for the state university system at least 30 years, retired thinking she was going to be safe for the rest of her life. And now she's in assisted living, and it takes every penny she earned. She has no extra money ever. I'm like, okay, it's a scam, folks. And they're selling you the golden calf. They're selling you the idea that you're going to have this retired life. And I look at it and go, I'm not ever actually planning to retire because A, I love what I do. And B, there's no secure retirement out there. Shouldn't we be living our lives and doing what we want and doing what we love?
Man,
Isn't that something that we should all be striving to attain? Shouldn't we be offering that to our children who are not working now because there's nothing for them? What would that even look like? Where you could spend your life working on what you love and getting provided security and living and everything else because you're doing what you love.
Like you have to be.
You did what I love. You did what you love, didn't you?
For the most part, toward the end, it's too much politics involved.
Okay, so how about if I say you can do what you love in a supportive environment?
Yeah.
So I'm going to use the UBI word, which is such dirty to a lot of people. Do you know that Gene Roddenberry in 1962, in the original scripting of Star Trek, devised an economy that economists today are calling the Star Trek economy?
I didn't know that.
So here's a vision for us. You want to know where we can envision things going? The Star Trek economy is based simply like this. And I'm going to go back to talking about government. So government's true role in things. In the Star Trek economy, you are guaranteed housing, food, education, shelter, housing, food, education, healthcare. That's guaranteed to every citizen of the planet. Everybody has that baseline. Where you go from there depends on what you give to society. Whatever job you do, you get merits for. And the more of it you do, the more merits you get based on actual service to the community. You can manufacture things, you can invent things, you can be an artist, you can be a teacher, you can be a driver, you can be any number of things, whatever your passion is. And society will support you.
It's all based on how much time you put into doing those things.
Pretty much.
Because otherwise it's like saying, well, otherwise it's valuing some people's offerings more than other people's.
Well, that's the whole point, is you level the playing field. Do you think a police officer is more valuable than a teacher? Do you think and actually this is one that came up the other day. Do you think a police officer is more valuable than a truck driver?
No,
I
think they're all just people.
Yeah.
And they're all
Battle jobs, right?
Right.
So should they not have the same merits applied for the work that they do?
Trigonomics.
Where's the money come from?
So here's the thing, it's a merit system. Okay, so money gets taken out of the equation. And what it is a value. So let's say that the government monitors all this through a computer system. And what happens is the hours you apply give you a certain amount of merits. Those merits go into a merit account. The merit account you would use to trade for product and or housing or upgrades that you want.
Vacation.
So Gene Roddenberry came up with this. Now they're talking about UBI. So this is like UBI on steroids,
I don't know what UBI is.
universal basic income.
Oh, okay.
So the idea is that we take the whole capitalism equation out. And this is not, and immediately the minute you say that, people go, well, is it communism or socialism? Well, yeah, it's a socialism to a great degree, but it's a functional socialism where you actually get rewarded for the work that you do and valued for the work that you do if it has a value to society. I mean, if you're going out and killing people, that's not really a valuable value to society, and you probably shouldn't get merits for it, or
Most people are.
But if you do work that is a benefit, if you're a farmer, a driver, any number of things are beneficial to the health of the society,
What if you just decide to sit on your butt because you've got health care and a place to live and food?
then that's all you'll ever have. You'll have whatever the baseline is.
And then what if you want to continue to education because you'll need to do that in order to do
Absolutely.
the things you want to do.
Education.
It's available to you.
And how does that get?
It's free. You get educated for free. You get shelter for free. You get food, a basic food income for free. And as you do things and you get merits, you can get better quality of everything. That's the idea. How does that sound for an idea?
Yeah, let's not take that one on yet.
Huh?
Let's not take that
No,
one
I'm
on yet.
I'm not even close. But if people all come together and just they want a more human future, would that not look something like that, or might it not look like something like that? You're asking it been done. Roddenberry wrote this, and now there's literally books on it
Did he write this in
Well,
the
there's-
60s?
in the
Aren't there-
60s.
Aren't there some Scandinavian countries that have a guaranteed?
They're starting to now. And actually, 27 countries universal basic income at this point, including Canada
What's that book called?
and some cities in the United States.
Trekonomics. I was looking that up.
Yeah.
So it's a book called Trekonomics. Manu Sadi.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting.
So it's it's in serious conversations. But if we continue down the capitalism path,
I think it's burned itself.
it's going to crash. And when it crashes, it's going to crash horribly.
I mean, we prepare ourselves for it.
Yeah.
Doubt about it.
I mean, no top heavy structure like that can stand. It's going to collapse.
What would our equity be? We would invest in energy.
What do you mean top? Why do you mean top heavy? Because it seems to me like there are fewer people with more money.
But all the money's up at the top
Yeah.
and fewer money at the bottom. So those
So there's
people
more
at the bottom,
people at the bottom.
but to have that money continue to go to the top, it has to have an expanding base, but the base is no longer expanding, the base is collapsing. Because there fewer and fewer people have money because it's all up here. When 9% of the money is in the top 10% of our
Population.
population, there's no expanding base. The money's got to come from somewhere, and there's no money in the base to circulate. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Remember the funnel I drew? Were you here for the night that I drew the funnel on the whiteboard? So the funnel means that the base is got no money, and so no money from them is feeding up. So they're on each other in the top 20 to 30%.
Maybe they'll just kill each other off up there.
Well, when it all collapses, that's is essentially what it is. I mean, I can tell you that a lot of these folks think that they're going to retire to the Cayman Islands to live, and they will escape all the worst of it. But the Cayman Islands, I have a friend who lives in the Grand Caymans, and we've been talking, and he's an environmentalist, and he's talking about how they've killed all of the fish off. Fish that they fished for 50 years ago don't exist anymore. 30 years ago don't exist anymore. Now they have a whole new range of fish, and the reef fish are dying off. And now they're going to dig a new canal for cruise boats to bring more money in, and it's going to kill even more of the fish off until the Grand Caymans aren't going to be able to sustain, and they're going to have to import 100% of their food. Now, if you're on an island, importing 100% of your food, is that sustainable? If we're Kitsap County and Cascadia cuts us off from the rest of the state, and we have 300,000 people here, is that sustainable?
Smoked salmon.
Okay, so almost 1 million gallons of diesel fuel is going to end up in the Sound. Are you going to want to catch a salmon from there and eat
I
it?
can guarantee you they're going to eat smoked salmon. They don't worry about that diesel fuel. When they get hungry, you know what people do. They're not going to eat each other.
Well, they might. Remember the Donner Party.
We're not in a rush. We're trying to smoke salmon.
So, it's the point is the building resilience is about building capacity. That's how we thrive. We build capacity to thrive. We build relationships. We build capacity, and in the process, we build jobs.
It's like we're going to be Quakers. We got to learn how to make oatmeal. Oatmeal is healthy.
I like
Oatmeal
Quakers.
is healthy.
I like oatmeal.
Oatmeal with honey.
I especially like oatmeal cookies with cranberries and walnuts.
He's on to something.
All right, folks. So it sounds like we're committed to going there. So we now need to figure out the skills to use. And we talked a little bit about the skills or when to walk away. None of this should ever get into a confrontational place. First of all, you're representing the project. So that should immediately back you away from being in confrontational.
Amazing.
Second,
we say that because it's like,
I'm looking at everybody.
okay, well, please, because I immediately, when it gets confrontational, I just walk away.
Yeah.
I literally walk away. I'll walk away from you if it gets confrontational because I have a million things I can do that are
Other than being
to
here.
the priorities of household.
Yeah.
You know, people are looking for conflict, and it's like, have a nice day unless you made other plans, and I'm gonna, you know, after a while, it's like, you know, there's other things that are much more important. You know, I will sell this and tell people about resilient communities thrive with care and concern, with compassion and understanding, and maybe even marketing. But when it turns into conflict, that's what's,
Walk away.
you know, hey,
It's exactly the right
I'll
answer.
go talk to the next person, you know, just in case you're interested. This is what the community is thinking on. We want to move in this direction. If you're interested, I can tell you more about it later. But there's no way to be in conflict with something that's constructive.
Get them here on the second Wednesday of the month. By the way, next Wednesday night is meet and greet here. And Tom pours, and we sit around and talk. And so invite people that might be interested in what we're doing to it so they can ask questions. Every second Wednesday of every month, we meet here at the Black Ring Distillery. And we hang out, and Tom hosts, and we answer questions, hand out passports.
Who's this Tom guy?
He's the guy in the back there that pours the drinks
Okay.
and owns the place. He's Tom is, and right now he's bottling. He's getting ready to bottle a run of whiskey because he's low on a few things. And this entire month he will be bottling. Also, the last I'm going to say that the last official session of the workshops is supposed to be the 16th. Though I think that we're probably going to be. I'm going to be here every Thursday after that. If you guys are interested in continuing and working on, and that night in hot toddies. So
The 16th?
the 16th. So Tom and I are going to have a little competition while we're doing the workshops. I'm making an Irish coffee with his coffee flavored whiskey. And
Joe?
is Toasted Joe, and I'm going to be making a glog with his apple brandy.
Is he going to make any effort? Nothing. I can't say this on air.
Are you gonna put a blazing hot poker into the?
Yeah, I'm going to do it I'm not going to do it that way because the fire hazards and everything. I'm probably going to make it in a crock pot, and I'm going to go silent for just a second. Yeah. All right, back online. Tony and I. So anyway, we're here on Saturday. We're doing a meet and greet at the Family Pancake House in Bremerton, 10 o'clock. And then, of course, there's the workshops. I'm not probably going to start a new workshop.
Wait a minute. I'm meeting and greeting? That's my job there?
No. Well, you can be here, though. But you can meet and greet. And actually, if somebody else wants to do it, a pancake, that's just having breakfast.
Oh, okay.
But several of us are going to have breakfast there. It's we call it a meet and greet so that we, people who are involved in the project can come.
I see. Okay. Okay.
And Marwan will be there, and Deborah, and several other people will be there. We've got the room in the back.
Guest coming.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. The elder lady, like ourselves.
So it should be a fun time. And then Terry's got a busy week this week because tomorrow night we've got a local business party to go to. And then Sunday she's going to go see Nutcracker, which is one of her favorite things.
Yes, I'm bringing my oldest and my granddaughter to the Nutcracker that's being performed at the Bremerton High School by the local dancers. Because I love the Nutcracker, and I haven't been able to go see the new Seattle. They have a new production in Seattle. It's been going now for at least 3 or 4 years, but I haven't been able to go see that. I've been dying The first nutcracker I'd ever witnessed was in San Francisco. And in fact, I just talked about it with my stepsister the other day about how wonderful that was. And I guess the reviews were like one of the best ever nutcrackers. So it was absolutely wonderful. When that tree made the big tree grow, it was amazing how they did that on stage.
So, and here are some things I would very much like all of your help with. You leaving?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. So we are starting to work diligently on putting together the Community Fest for March of this year. And we are hoping to have the Kitsap Pavilion at the fairgrounds.
And what does that consist of?
What we'd like to do is bring in organizations that do work on community to there and invite the people of Kitsap County to come in and talk about what they think of as a community. And one of the pieces I want to have is in the center of the pavilion. I would like to have a town hall meeting hosted potentially by one of our local political folks with the strict instructions that this is bipartisan and non-political. Out of them, what they think community looks like, to have the part of the conversation we have here. And I would like people who have gone through the training to actually be there to help facilitate some of the conversations that will go on from the side of there. Is that something you guys can do? The key's right over here. It's the Pink Panther key. Go for it.
Walk in between your conversation.
It's okay. No, Pink Panther. But
You'll be sad if you get there and
Yes, that's the
that's a Pink Panther.
Yes,
and you have the
Yeah.
wrong key.
that's a big yes. Pardon me, people.
Yeah. Look for a planter. I'm sorry.
Again.
So you can't get in.
So is that something you guys would be interested in attending or participating in?
In March?
Okay, because we're looking at bringing together a lot of organizations, but it's really going to be up to us to facilitate the whole thing coming together.
Yeah, and again, if you know of any businesses that are community oriented, let us know because then we can invite it to there.
And if you guys,
Have a booth there.
yeah, if you guys haven't seen the new page up on the Kitsap Resiliency Project or the Resilient Ecosystems website under the Kitsap Resiliency Project, we have a page called Champions. And we're calling out people that work with the community, whether not because it benefits them, but because they're just good people. We talk about organizations that benefit the community. And actually, I called out Marwan and G2 in it. I can't, because he's on my board of directors, I can't actually make him a champion because it
We know he's a champion.
right. But I called out the
Kitsap Community Resources.
Kitsap Community, KCR, Kitsap Community Resources. This is Tom. Tom, wave.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Tom.
That's Tom.
But I never had heard his last name before.
Tom Martin.
I thought you said something about Tom Page.
No, Tom Martin.
Oh, okay.
Your head looks
Your head is,
better.
yeah. It looks way better.
Yeah.
Better?
Well,
It's been 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's gonna be a birthday.
All I
Right.
have a souvenir.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
But your lines aren't too rattled.
I didn't have much in the way of brains to work with in the first place, so that was really not the problem. You know, just the concussion is really what.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm. Thank you.
Okay. So, we call out people and we call out businesses too. I don't know if you've been to Colello's.
Yeah.
Colello's is because they are very community oriented. Rosanna's Asia Market, of course, Tom and Heather are listed in there.
Martifa is in it? Is she?
No,
She's honorable mention.
yeah, she's honorable mention.
Yeah.
Anyway, there are several businesses that are very community focused that we call out and bring that. So any more that you guys work with that or run across it are people who are more about the community than they are about corporate philosophy. We want to call them out and highlight them and bring them up. Helmets Auto Repair over on Text.
Oh, gosh.
They are amazing, amazing people.
I know, I learned about him from, and now my mom and both my mom and I bring our cars there because he's reasonable and he doesn't try to take you because you're a woman.
Yeah.
From a lot of the elders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve over there is just awesome.
I haven't ever heard
Is the
bad about
Chinese
that.
guy and
Yeah.
his mother,
I'm
is
an
the
old
one
tow
you
truck
talked
driver. I've
to.
been around Spence.
That didn't work real well for me.
He also now recommends a guy's named Mike over off of Colello.
I go to Mike
What the
because he
deal
does my
was with
truck.
car.
He
Yeah.
draws
Oh,
my
no,
truck
no.
Mike
every
and
day.
Steve work together a
No,
lot.
he's
And then I go to
Well, he did, but he's
Kids
not the
at
person I was.
Customs over behind
Oh,
Red Apple
my
Market.
goodness.
Also. Because he has the post office.
I don't know. I just
I go to those two. And then I do everything
That's,
at
I've never talked to her. I've
West
always
Bay,
just talked to
Napa,
him, so, and
Kids
he's
that
usually
way,
one
yeah,
that
'cause I'm-
usually answers the phone.
me and the guy have the same year truck.
Yeah,
His
I
wife
know.
has a truck. He's got a truck.
In fact, I'm
Anything
thinking about
he told
putting
me.
it in for-
Oh, I have to tell
Probably
you
10 years ago.
something. You got a
Anything you put that
job.
truck, you come talk to me.
Find it.
Yeah, then he says me to
He
Mike.
interviewed and got
or
he's got a job. He's
Steve.
gonna be working for a
Yeah.
contractor on a
Yeah.
project that will probably last a year. And it's the old,
And-
rest.
Where to take it, and I think that goes helmets.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Only,
Steve prefers to work on German
it's-
cars,
It's right.
He's-
next to,
he's predominant reason I got the
percent,
Mercedes.
or what do you call
Okay.
it?
but he's good on all
Yeah,
cars.
Salvation
So I know
Army.
he was taking care of my
And-
neighbors.
Well,
and my
apparently
brother's
they
property.
were fixing
My
that
neighbor had
all
a
up to
Volkswagen.
be for a homeless shelter.
Always took it over to
And
helmets,
then
and they, I remember they told me,
Somebody didn't like
He was
it. I
like
mean, because they didn't, I mean, they
Some
had it
man.
almost all,
Lieutenant Colonel or something.
you know,
Lieutenant
set to
Commander, I
go.
remember. They just
And
told him.
somebody nixed
We
it.
always recommended that.
Really?
And he, this
good,
is, this is.
and
the
he's
guy
honest.
that's gonna be working for
That's
Tony.
fair.
He
That's
said,
fair. Because I remember driving that tow truck.
that,
My boss would say,
You know,
"$20 a
they
year."
gave some
I'll take it
funny
there, 'cause I
thing
have
about
guys,
the
they-
reason why,
in
but
the
he
car,
said
I get
basically.
20
it
bucks.
was
Hey, you bring-
the reason why I have it,
but
because
then I
already
realized he
the,
was
Salvation Army
gouging him
there
so he
would
could
freeze
afford
a
to give me
bunch
that 20.
Yeah.
of people
My
off.
daughter just had her smart card
But
towed
you
there.
This is-
know, why don't you tell her almost
Why
why?
not?
All right,
Why not?
so
So this guy's putting on.
okay, so I'm going to call for just a moment. I'm going to say that let's call the evening because it's 10 after, and I want Marwan to be able to close down the mic and all of this, and he's going to be his official self.
Get on that hospital.
All right, everyone. That is another workshop from ResEcho. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Hopefully you learned something. Your participation is definitely welcome. We would love for you to be a part, take a part. Mark gave out all the information. The meet and greet next Wednesday here. What time was that again?
At 6 o'clock.
That's 6 o'clock at the Black Ring Spirits. And what's the address there, Tom?
1700 Mile Hill, Port Orchard, Washington, 98366, and we're in suite number 116.
All right. Excellent hospitality and a good time. So hopefully we'll see you then. And of course, the next workshop is next at 6:30. Come on in early. Meet Tom, meet his wife Heather, and meet everyone. We'll be setting up early, so we're here. So it's a great time
Changed
to
it.
just kind of
Brought it
chat
earlier.
beforehand. And again, we've got it's the Saturday breakfast and open thing.
Yeah, it is. For 10 o'clock in the morning, Family Pancake House on Wheaton Way, right near where McLeod's is, next
All
to the
right.
Firestone dealer.
So that's 10 a.m. Tony, you just got back in town, so this is your official invite. If you would like to come, we'll be there. Rob and Stephanie and several others. So
I like food.
at 7. All right. And so
Hold on. Were you talking about the meet and greet?
Yes, it's
We-
at
we-
7
we-
on December 8th.
Yeah, I'm actually changing that to 6 o'clock earlier.
Okay.
so 6 p.m. next Wednesday here at the Black Ring Spirits. We'll see you maybe Saturday at 10 a.m. at the Family Pancake House, 303.
Yep.
I am Marwan Cameron. This is the Conduit. We will see you next time, everyone. All right.
And
Have a
remember, resilient communities thrive.
resilient communities thrive. You got it.